Hello. Discovery and application of knowledge is a function of education. Now let's interrogate this sector with a focus on the funding of tertiary education system in Nigeria. Good evening and welcome to Weekend File. Now, since the taking over of most schools in the country from primary to tertiary level in the mid-70s, the public sector had been the major provider and financier of education in the country. But the inability of government alone to satisfy the ever-growing demand, mostly for tertiary education, necessitated the entry of the private sector operators in the tertiary education system to provide access and mitigate funding challenges. But over the years, university teachers protested poor funding of tertiary institutions and lack of provision and upgrading of infrastructure on campuses, as well as basic amenities. Another perspective to the funding of tertiary education is that of the capacity of parents to cope with tuition and other fees charged at the nation's public and private institutions. To address the shortcomings in this tier of education, the federal government had in the last 4 years taken measures to fund tertiary education, both in terms of budgetary allocations and funds from intervention agencies such as Tertiary Education Trust Fund, TETFUND. Some of the efforts of the federal government towards elevating the quality of tertiary education in Nigeria will be encapsulated in our correspondence report and the conversation that follows. Our guest tonight is Professor Suleiman Elias Bogoro, Executive Secretary, TETFUND, and he will be joining us from our Enugu Network Center at the right time. This is Weekend File, first edition in the month of June, coming on the first day of the month. I am Kirian Umayo, and the show begins now with the news. We begin from Mecca, where President Muhammadu Buhari has made a strong representation to member countries of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation to ensure that values of tolerance and moderation continue to guide their actions as they collectively seek to promote global harmony, peace and security. In his address to the 14th Ordinary Summit of the organization in Mecca, Saudi Arabia, the president also urged the gathering to do more in poverty alleviation, combating terrorism and insurgency, humanitarian services, as well as enhancing food security. State House correspondent Adam Sambo now reports.
With the theme, Mecca Summit, hand in hand towards the future, the event provided the opportunity for member countries to deliberate on the best ways of addressing contemporary challenges facing them, especially those that have assumed grave dimensions in recent times and require serious and coordinated approach for lasting solutions. President Muhammadu Buhari, who is the third Nigerian leader to attend the summit of the OIC in person, spoke on behalf of African leaders at the closed-door session. He condemned all terrorist acts against member states and stressed that the fight against the menace should be prioritized, especially in preventing and suppressing the acts through increased international solidarity and cooperation. He particularly acknowledged the support of the OIC to Nigeria and West Africa in not only countering the menace of terrorism and armed criminality, but also alleviating the attendant humanitarian crisis, saying, however, that more still needs to be done.
He made a strong statement about science, technology, and innovation, which I feel the fund that OIC has in place, if that is given to Nigeria or we are able to benefit from it, it will go a long way in promoting science, technology, and innovation in our place. He requested the OIC also to redouble their effort in the poverty alleviation in Africa.
President Buhari also applauded the decision of the OIC to support the Interbasin Water Transfer Project towards recharging Lake Chad, as well as the robust intervention of its various institutions, particularly the Islamic Development Bank Group, in the implementation of national development projects in Africa.
The issue of Lake Chad, which, as we all know, has been very dear to Mr. President's heart, especially because the livelihood of almost 30 million people is being threatened by that recession. And as you are also aware, there has been that program of recharging the Lake Chad. And OIC has now adopted a resolution that will help in recharging the Lake Chad. So that is a significant contribution not only to Nigeria in particular, but to Africa as a whole.
President Muhammadu Buhari also recognized the pivotal role of science, technology, and innovation in member states' efforts towards addressing global challenges linked to issues of environment, climate change, human health, energy sources, and water resources, saying Africa is committed to supporting collaborative research programs. From Mecca, Saudi Arabia, Adamu Sambu, NTA News.
And at the end of the Mecca summit, member states of the OIC reiterated their position against all forms and manifestations of terrorism, regardless of its motives and justifications. State House correspondent Adamu Sambu again reports that the communique adopted a comprehensive approach towards eradicating extremist ideologies and draining the swamp terrorist breeds.
The summit, which coincided with the 50th anniversary of the organization, had in attendance leaders and heads of state of the 57 member countries, in addition to the core issues of restoring the national rights of the Palestinians and other long-standing unresolved conflicts in Syria, Yemen, and Libya. The OIC also took far-reaching measures towards enhancing peace and development in member countries, while affirming its support for the Sahel region in building the capacities of the defense and security forces of member countries to counter terrorism and combat organized crimes. The organization expressed full solidarity with Nigeria and other Lake Chad Basin countries facing grave security challenges occasioned by the Boko Haram insurgency. To this end, the Council of Foreign Affairs of the OIC has been requested to mobilize political commitment as well as undertake development and humanitarian activities. The conference further confirmed the decision to support the ongoing project of recharging Lake Chad, given its socio-economic importance for member countries of the region.
Well, essentially, the major takeaways include interventions and support in areas of our national priorities, and which means that Nigeria now need to leverage on these resolutions to be able to drive maximum benefit and value from these resolutions and from the support of the OIC. Essentially, you only have a takeaway when you are able to access, the possibilities and the prospects of each of these resolutions that have been passed.
African countries are encouraged to come together and handle their crisis. For example, in Nigeria, we are encouraged to work together with Niger, Chad, Cameroon, Mali, and Libya. When there is that relationship and the effort is united, it is much, much easier to handle the crisis than each country is facing its own challenges.
Participants commended the establishment of institutional mechanisms towards promoting intra-OIC trade and attaining the target of 25% of trade exchanges amongst member states by the year 2025. OIC is the second largest intergovernmental organization after the United Nations, with a collective population of nearly 2 billion people spread across 57 member countries in 4 continents of the world. From Mecca, Adamu Sambu, NTA News.
Determined to bring to a permanent end the Boko Haram menace, President Muhammadu Buhari is scheduled to host leaders of the Lake Chad Basin Commission to an informal security summit. The summit will take on the sidelines of activities marking Nigeria's Democracy Day on the 12th of June this year. This came to light at a bilateral engagement between the president and his Chadian counterpart Idris Deby in Mecca. Here again is Adamu Sambu.
President Muhammadu Buhari told the Chadian leader that having returned in full force after the elections, time has come for a new way forward towards removing completely the threat of terrorism from the Lake Chad Basin. He described the unwinding nature of the war as unacceptable. The two leaders shared information on the oncoming rainy season and challenges that it poses for the military. They say everything must be done to support urgent operational measures for lasting solutions.
He isolated and highlighted their own discoveries as per the recent operations that they had around the Nigeria-Chad border.
What are the discoveries?
Well, that they found out that through their operations, there are certain issues they found, especially in terms of the weaponry and the military hardware that are being used by the insurgents. The President appreciated that briefing and essentially recommitted himself to continuous fight against insurgents with the support of the neighbors. And he also indicated his willingness to energize the Nigerian side of the military operations.
The two presidents agreed to sustain engagements that the countries should team up together and fight harder and sustain the attacks.
Any threat to security in a particular country affect the other. So there have been quite a lot of discussion in this regard in the past, and they want the thing to continue so as not to give Boko Haram the opportunity to regroup and relaunch.
They also talked about how the meeting in Abuja should respond to the infiltration through Libya of the displaced elements of ISIL into the lectured area. From Mecca, Saudi Arabia, Adamu Sambo, NTA News.
Thank you indeed, Adamu, for those reports. Remember the saying that a promise made is a debt unpaid. The debt owed a person is not paid until that promise is fulfilled. Well, that's exactly what the Vice President, Yemi Osinbajo, did when he visited Koba in Buhari Area Council of the FCT. Correspondent Jide Onifade reports that not only was the visit a fulfillment of the Vice President's 2019 campaign promise to the family of a 106-year-old Baggy president in Koba, it was also in keeping with his initiative to interact with the grassroots right in their homes and communities.
In the Vice President's interaction with the centenarian at Friday's visit, he thanked the Gajajins and members of the community for their support and prayers during the 2019 elections. He also assured him of government's continued support for the community. And speaking through an interpreter, Baba Gajajin reminded the Vice President of how he had predicted that President Buhari would emerge victorious at the polls. The centenarian also informed the Vice President of some of the basic needs of the community, especially issues affecting the youths. Earlier in the year, the Vice President, in the course of the family charts, met Baba Gajajin at Kubwa community, assuring him of more government support to the community and promised to return on a thank-you visit after the elections and urged the people of the community to remain steadfast with the Buhari government. Residents of the Kukwaba community, including the young and old, came out in large numbers to welcome and take photographs with the Vice President shortly after interacting with his host to say thank you to the people. In Abuja, Jide Onifade, NTA News.
In Katsina State, wife of the President, Aisha Muhammadu Buhari, is also meeting with those in vulnerable situations, especially victims of armed bandits who are in dire need of essential commodities to cushion the effect of their hardship. Well, details of that report will be brought to you in due course. Up ahead now, in continuation of its sustained air strikes against remnants of Islamic State of West Africa province, ISWAP, elements on the fringes of Lake Chad, the Air Task Force of Operation Lafia Dole has severely degraded a terrorist hideout at Abaganaram in northern Borno State. A statement by the Director of Public Relations and Information, Air Commodore Ibukunle Daramola, says the attack, which took place on the 31st of May 2019, was executed following the discovery of the active terrorist settlement by a Nigerian Air Force intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance platform on a routine mission. Accordingly, the ATF scrambled 2 Alpha jet aircrafts to attack the location, scoring accurate hits on 3 target compounds, which resulted in the destruction of the structures as well as the neutralization of some of the fighters. Now, the Federal Capital Territory Police Command has arrested 6 persons involved in illegal trading and hawking of the naira. Safia Norma Uche reports that the offense contravenes Section 20 and 21 of the Central Bank of Nigeria Act of 2007, which prohibits the illegal sale or hawking of Nigerian currency.
The naira was introduced on January 1st, 1973, replacing the pound, making the currency Nigeria's legal tender. As the largest economy in Africa, one may not know that the abuse of naira attracts steep penalties. Hence, the offense of selling, buying, spraying, or even squeezing the naira is 6 months imprisonment or an option of 50,000 naira or both. Commissioner of Police FCT Balachuroma said the Central Bank of Nigeria Enforcement Committee on the Abuse of the Naira in collaboration with the police and the Department of the State Security Service carried out the raid at Day under the bridge.
Sum total of 1,948,016 naira from the 6 suspects arrested and others at large at Day under the bridge. The suspects and exhibits have been transferred to the Criminal Investigations Department for further investigation.
I am into this business. I don't know where the man that supplies me with the money works. He only comes around and meets me out here.
200 naira, 50 naira, 20 naira, 10 naira and 5 naira denominations were notes recovered. The police say the offenders will be charged to court upon completion of investigation. Safia Norma Uche, NTA News.
The National Examinations Council, NECO, has inaugurated 8,000 biodata capturing devices and 20 pickup vans as part of efforts to enhance efficiency of the examination body. Fatima Osman reports.
Vaccination has remained a menace, hindering the success of examination bodies in Nigeria in spite of various forms of technologies introduced. Thus, the new strategy by the National Examination Council, NECO, is the biometric data capturing device designed to verify candidates in the examination hall. 8,000 of the biometric data capturing machines, the examination body says, will be programmed for the various centers across the country. Hence, only duly registered candidates recognized by the device will sit for the exams.
But with this, I'm telling you 100%, because every candidate for any subject registered must go through the biometric.
Meanwhile, 20 Hilux pickup vans, also inaugurated at the event, are to reduce the logistic issues of prompt distribution of materials to examination centers and forestall reoccurrence of rescheduling of exams due to late arrival of materials. The Director of Human Resources, Federal Ministry of Education, Alhaji Awal Abubakar, while commending the initiative, says the ministry is open to more ideas and further collaboration that will fast-track development in the education sector.
You can now see the efforts being put by JAM are now being learned by a sister agency.
High point of the event was the demonstration of the biometric data capturing machine and test driving of the inaugurated vans. In Mina, Fatima Usman, NTA News.
More than 60,000 candidates shortlisted for the ongoing Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation NNPC recruitment took the computer-based test nationwide. Energy correspondent Lydia Sampson joined the Chief Operating Officer Services, Esa Inoa, to monitor the exercise in some centers in Abuja.
In the past, employment processes in the NNPC can be likened to a highly guided secret. The question is the narrative changing?
I think the whole process went very well, and it was actually encouraging because everything was in order. We came and we identified, and we are allowed to go in. But I think it's okay. If this is how most of the test should be conducted, honestly, I would recommend this process.
Yes, they put it on our list after the accreditation.
Okay.
Yes.
So how would you describe the process of the accreditation?
Well, it was quite simple. Yeah. Just on a single queue, and it was not slow.
Onkwa Charles Ifanyi belongs to the first barge and has just finished his computer-based test, while Nagogo Bilkis Munir has scaled accreditation, waiting for the next barge. They are amongst more than 60,000 candidates looking for employment with the NNPC. The computer-based test held simultaneously in 94 centers across 22 states of the Federation.
We want to be transparent. We want to be accountable to the public in our conduct and in what we do. And we want people to believe not just in our institution as NNPC, but also believe in following the right path in doing things. And we're setting an example.
Those who emerge successful in the computer-based test will subsequently be invited for oral interview for final selection. In Abuja, Lydia Samson, NTA News.
You're watching Weekend File on the network service of the NTA. The lingering inadequacies in the funding of tertiary education by successive administrations left the current government with the challenge of devising the means of reversing the trend. Learn more in our correspondence report coming in just a while.
Barakata Sala from the Federal Road Safety Commission.
The Federal Road Safety Corps appreciates the continuous support being received from the motoring public. Road traffic crashes are trending down and concerted effort is being made by the government to improve on road safety management. As celebration approaches, it is expected that road users will undertake trips to visit families and loved ones. The Corps encourages you to conduct vehicle safety checks before embarking on your trip. Avoid night journeys. Use your seat belts. Avoid overloading and driving above prescribed speed limits. Comply with road traffic laws and regulations. Prevention is always the best approach to avoid road traffic crashes and injuries. I implore you all to please partner with FRSC to reduce road traffic crashes on our highways. Drive to save a life. I wish you all a happy celebration.
People think that this is all my life is about. They don't see that part of me that has ambitions of owning a fleet of buses.
Sometimes people don't see you for what you're really worth.
I am more than just a downfall driver.
At Access Bank, we see you not for who you are today, but for who you will be tomorrow. Access, more than banking.
It's Ramadan. It's okay to share what you love. Ramadan Kareem from Indomie. Indomie Super Pack now available at 85 Naira.
The chairman and members of the Petroleum Tanker Drivers of Nupeng, PTD, heartily felicitates with all Muslim faithfuls as we celebrate the Eid al-Fitr to mark the end of the Ramadan. It's a time to travel. Let's keep our roads safe. Obey all traffic rules. Do not drink and drive. Do not overspeed, overload, or overtake recklessly. Use your seatbelts at all times. And do not use your mobile phones while driving. Your life is precious to your loved ones and the nation. Do have a safe and memorable Salah celebration. This message is from Otumba Salmon Akoni Oladiti, Chairman, Nupeng PTD, Announcer.
Ever since he could hold a bat, Charles wanted to play like his big brother. Victor had skills that matched the best in the land. Never mind, little brother. Drink your Dano milk and keep practicing. So that is what he did. And step by step, glass by glass, the boy grew in spirit and strength. Drink your Dano milk and be strong.
Also available in Dano Cool Cow, Dano Slim, and Dano Flavored Milk. Choose Dano. Choose goodness.
One Football Confederation, 24 teams, 6 stadiums, 4 cities, 504 African stars, 1 trophy. The Africa Cup of Nations Egypt 2019 comes alive from June 21 with the showpiece final on July 19, 2019. Watch the 52 matches of the tournament live on Africa's biggest and largest television network, NTA, in partnership with Hot Sports. Be part of the biggest soccer fiesta in the African continent as the Super Eagles go on a bold mission to clinch the prestigious title for the 4th time, to the excitement of millions of fans across the length and breadth of Nigeria. Nigeria's premier sports production and marketing group, Hot Sports, partners with the biggest, the largest, and the #1 television network in Africa, the NTA, to give Nigerians a memorable viewing experience. Boost fan support for the Super Eagles to glory in Egypt. For inquiries, please contact Abubakar on 0803-331-0175 and Felix on 0803-308-2375. NTA, you can't beat the rich.
You're welcome back, and just before we bring you our weekend file report, let's take this. TG Ala Dairy Nigeria, makers of Dano Milk, says it will continue to raise the bar towards producing nutritious milk to Nigerians. Market manager of the company, Ifnai Obiako, said this at this year's World Milk Day in Lagos. Ken Ebeluge has more.
World Milk Day is a day established by the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. This is a day to recognize the importance of milk as a global food. Since 2001, the day is celebrated every June 1 each year. This is why every year, TG Hala Dairy Food rolls out the drums in celebration. Against the background of the theme for this year, raise a glass to a good nutrition milk. Marketing manager TG Hala Dairy says the company is committed to creating the much needed awareness on the benefits of milk.
We pride ourselves in the fact that we have control of the production process from farm to the final consumer, and that's the essence of today. And also to re-emphasize our commitment to Nigeria to provide natural, quality and nourishing dairy products to consumers.
Milk contains essential nutrients. It contains calcium that is good for our bodies. Research recently has shown that it is good. It calms down, stress in the body.
The reason why people are to supplement their daily nutrients and diets with milk, especially for school-age children, for the older adults, and many others. This one is a real eye-opener.
The company says with a glass of Dano milk every day, Nigerians will experience nourishment. In Lagos, Ken Ebeluge, NTA News.
Now, back to Weekend File. And let's find out from our correspondent, Ruth Ario Samuel, what intervention at the University of Lagos and Yaba College of Technology has been in the past 4 years and impact on lecturers' capacity.
Over the years, TETFUND has strategically intervened in key areas of academic needs in tertiary institutions. At the Yaba College of Technology, TETFUND has ensured this 72-year-old institution is supported with learning and laboratory equipment to aid the students with the necessary skills to compete favorably with their peers around the world.
Students used to sit down on the staircase to see lectures at times, but during some period of while, started using the materials, chairs. At times we receive lecture at TF building. Some lecturers have offices there too. That's the more reason why TETFUND have been coming to supply us during those times.
We students, there's something we really love. It's free Wi-Fi. And if TETFUND can actually do that, yes, these are things that students will benefit from, especially we that are in our HND. We're having problem with data, trying to get such information. But if TETFUND can come and they say that, yes, there's free Wi-Fi for students.
Staff of the institution have also benefited through training and retraining, as attested to by the rector.
Through TETFUND, staff are now going on a study leave to acquire higher degrees. Kind of turn around for the school. When the staff are back with higher degree, the student gains a lot from them, unlike when there is no staff cannot afford to go for a workshop or go for a higher degree. And of course, in this job, there is need for refresher courses so that you are up to date And of course, digital equipments that are coming in now will replace the obsolete ones that we have. So with this, there's a lot of impact.
The University of Lagos has also benefited substantially from the Intervention Fund, promoting and creating innovative approach to learning. In Lagos, Ruth Ariel Samuel, NTA News.
And from Owerri, Beatrice Anyam reports on the impact of funding in federal government tertiary institutions in Imo State.
Federal University of Technology and Federal Polytechnic Nekede, both in Owerri, Imo State, are beneficiaries of federal government increased funding through Tertiary Education Trust Fund, TETFUND, Needs Assessment Special Presidential Intervention Fund, and World Bank, among others. This is evident in the quality of infrastructure, conducive learning environment, well-equipped electronic laboratories and libraries, ICT centers, as well as other procurements in the institutions.
Without TETFUND, our educational system would have gone terribly low. Fund also provides money for research, and we have staff in engineering, in science, and in other areas that are carrying out research, both empirical research and researches of all other kinds.
That has helped us to equip our students, both students and staff, very well to produce employable graduates and very competent staff, both teaching and non-teaching.
Some students speak on the impact of the intervention funds. They called on the government to provide more modern equipment for practical studies and employ adequate number of staff.
500 level students that are doing research work. The lab is really helping them. For sometimes some students do use one equipment, like 20 students will be using one equipment, but now it's not done that way.
We have good libraries, we can access the internet. Then our laboratories are also very okay.
Stakeholders are, however, appealing to federal government to sustain the funding of institutions in Nigeria. In Owerri, Beatrice Anyam, NTA News.
And from Kano, Fatima Sanusi Karaye examines the level of the federal government's intervention into tertiary institutions in that state.
Over the years, various levels of education in the country have been confronted with problems thereby affecting the development of the nation. In the last 4 years, the federal government's intervention for tertiary institutions glubbed over 700 million naira allocated to critical areas of infrastructure development and research. Is part of efforts by the Buhari administration to promote developmental growth. Bayero University, Kano, and Saada Turimi College of Education are among the institutions that benefited from the intervention.
From 2016 to date, we have 167 staff that were sponsored to undergo various training that includes PhD degrees, masters.
On the other hand, Bayero University, Kano is one of the most transformed institutions in the country in terms of physical infrastructure development. For example, a world-class studios at the Faculty of Communications with cutting-edge gadgets is second to none in the country.
We have been getting what is known as regular grant that is given to institutions, and also we have benefited from special grants.
In the area of academic research, in 2019, 2 lecturers from the university were given grants of 40 million naira to undertake research work.
My own research is in the realm of the economy, and it is only through objective research that you can be able to, convince people.
Researches like this can address some of the nation's developmental challenges through knowledge transfer and training of high-quality graduates. In Kano, Fatima Sanusi Karaye for Weekend File.
And we thank you for staying with us on the program for today. Our guest, Professor Suleiman Elas Bagara, Executive Secretary TETFUND, who is in our Enugu studio, will be joining me in just a moment. Don't go away.
They are there at the crack of dawn. They are there busy preparing while we rise for our day.
They are there silently, guarding, waiting, listening, and watching. They are there ready in the sky above and the waters below, in the blistering heat of the day, in the dead of night, willing, indefatigable, determined in the defense of the sovereignty of our country. They are our first line of defense and our last. They who have paid the ultimate price in defending us. They are fathers and uncles. They are mothers and sisters and girlfriends and boyfriends. They are brothers and cousins and best friends and neighbors. They are classmates, colleagues, and citizens of this nation. They are our defenders and deserve our respect, our prayers, our thoughts. Nigeria, please support our armed forces.
These days, people get their news and information from more media sources than ever before. Some of the news and information given are fake, unverified, doctored, and manufactured to create confusion, stir disaffection, and cause disunity. Before you believe or share any news, ask yourself, is this real? Is it from a credible source? Is it verified or verifiable? Fake news is dangerous. Whether you do it for fun or for political gains, real people can get hurt. Fake news, don't create it, don't spread it.
This is a public service announcement from NTA.
Now, joining me from our Enugu Network Center is Professor Suleiman Elias Bogoro, the Executive Secretary at TETFUND. Good evening and welcome to Weekend File.
Maya.
Right. Professor Bogoro, given the capital-intensive nature of tertiary education, what is the extent of your intervention in infrastructure in the last 4 years?
Thank you very much. As you may recall, TETFUND was originally ETF. And between 1993 and 99, monies were collected. And from about 99, when the Board of Trustees was established, interventions commenced. And it lasted up to 2011 when the name changed. Not for the sake of it, but to reflect the original concept that the funds were meant for the tertiary subsector of the larger education sector. And effectively, as it were, it is recalled that ETF then, which is now TETFUND, is a creation of agreement between government and ASU, 1992. And the idea was because of the very low funding level of public tertiary institutions. And so that was a major priority. And it's recalled that at some point, ASU had said, our universities had become glorified secondary schools, that you witness more of decrepitude instead of elegance in our tertiary institutions. And from 2011, between 1999 and 2011, of course, the funds were applied, including the basic subsector, research institutes, colleges of agri, college of nursing schools, etc. Focus from 2011 for the tertiary subsector, but exclusively government-owned, that is, federal or state universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education. And massively, we've seen transformation from that time. And I can tell you that that continued. In 2015, I was in office during my first stint. And I know exactly what was the situation. Increasingly and consistently, we've seen more infrastructure emerging, making up the deficit, which was a major aspect that was an embarrassment for public tertiary institutions in this country. But as one is able to recall, and for now, we have up to 15 intervention lines spread to the benefit of, at the moment, about 220 beneficiary institutions. That's universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education. And those intervention lines, initially, that we said, the focus was more on the infrastructure, the physical infrastructure. But we've gradually now been shifting. Over the last 4 years, we've seen more focus on areas like research, manuscript development, conference attendance, academic staff training for the purpose of MSc and PhD, both locally and overseas. And there is no doubt that, as many people would say, at some point you found out that over 1,000 students were packed in one small place. Now, if they have to do so, they have more spaces now than it was now. So definitely a lot has been achieved over the last 4 years, and I'm happy to say this here. The new strategic plan by the federal government, as enunciated by the Honorable Minister of Education, Ma Adamu, plans to increase the 2% education tax collected by federal inland revenue for our interventions from 2 to 3%. I think that is a welcome development. We are hoping that we will make the best use of it. We have tried over time to ensure that we justify government confidence in asking us to manage huge funds on behalf of the good people of Nigeria.
All right, on your second coming as Executive Secretary of TETFUND, you introduced some reforms aimed at repositioning the scheme. Give us some of the insights into some of those reforms, especially those which have prompted the partnering institutions outside Nigeria.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to know that NTA is on the trail of some of the initiatives we have started. And let me say this, that actually, like you rightly said, it's recalled that I came in as Executive Secretary between 2014 and 2016. I was disengaged, but as it were, mercifully and thankfully, by Mr. President, I was reinstated January 21st. And I couldn't lose the import of such an unprecedented action by a president, because as it were, there were issues raised against me. I looked at them while I was disengaged and discovered that there was no basis for my disengagement. For me, it is the biggest challenge for me ever in public service. And I have tried to justify it by, one, reenacting some of those initiatives. And let me say this, a key area, when I was appointed in 2014, I came up with 6-point vision, driving TETFUND with ICT, creating some departments, particularly a department for R&D and centers of excellence, amidst other things, ensuring that we improve the capacity of our personnel and all that. The summary of it is that I was looking at more of deepening research in our public tertiary institutions, because we discovered that one of the major areas of the low ranking and rating of Nigerian universities, for instance, has to do with the falling level of research. And to do so, we need to do what the rest of the more competitive nations are doing, and that is creating the platform for the researcher and industry to come operate together, mutually for the benefit of improvement of technology, the economy, and of course the nation overall. And that is how, for instance, it's recalled that more recently, the idea that we started by creating R&D department, National Universities Commission under the leadership of Professor Rashid Abakar has moved very strongly to recognize that and look at it from the perspective of the triple helix, whereby the researcher and industry platform is created for them, but there, of course, governance in terms of creating the legal as well as the policy environment. And precisely in respect of R&D, which is that focus which I mentioned earlier, what that happens, essentially, it leads us to recognizing the fact that the researcher cannot continue to operate in isolation. Basic research, we have research grant, what we call IBR, institution-based research. with a maximum of 2 million. Then we have the National Research Fund with a ceiling of up to 50 million. And in that respect, the objective is to get researchers involved in applied research, empirical research, as somebody said earlier. And precisely, we are very excited about the prospect, especially of the NUC embracing it and moving very forcefully, as it were, to recognize it. And at the end of the day, we are hoping that an R&D foundation by this country be established, whereby funds will be by law, be made available by every entity, particularly the profit-making ones. A prescribed percentage is committed to R&D, so that there will be no excuse for any researcher to say no more funds. Remember that inadequate funding has been a major reason for ASU strike over time. So that is one of the avenues through which we'll be solving both the perceived poverty situation of the lecturer, as well as curtailing the frequency of lecturers going on strike. Once you are productive as a researcher, you are worth yourself. You have no reason to complain any longer. So we've come back with that, and we are hoping with the support of all Nigerians. With my honorable minister, and he told me that is the direction of government. And tonight, I picked the element of the news with Mr. President in faraway Saudi Arabia, talking about science, technology, and innovation. I am very excited. Coming at the highest level of leadership in this country, that is to tell you that Mr. President believes in the new paradigm shift, that is deepening research for the purpose of making the researcher relevant. We must be seen to take the appropriate leadership position that we deserve in the universities, polytechnic, and college of education, whereby in an era of knowledge economy, it is profound research and intellectual engagement that drives the process.
Oh, okay, in what appears to be the final question from me, what are the conditions attached to benefiting from your intervention? We've had in the past where the management of some universities complain about the inability to access funds from TETFUND. What is the eligibility level one should attain before you can access funds from TETFUND?
Thank you. If you say some universities, of course I understand that you mean the other, including the other tertiary institutions, polytechnics and college of education. Definitely we've had those complaints, but let me take advantage of this platform to mention the issue of private institutions that had always hoped and are still hoping that they could benefit. Let me say it for the purpose of clarity, that the law of TETFUND is very clear, that it is only public tertiary institutions that will benefit. But the law went further to be specific, that it is university and college of education, not just any tertiary institution. So, and as I have always said, whenever the issue arose in the past, to qualify, an institution has to be owned by federal or state government, as it were, at the tertiary subsector. But let me say this, government has insisted on that, and we believe there is wisdom in it. For instance, let me say the justification for government applying the funds only to public tertiary institutions is this. For instance, at the moment, the number of universities, private and public universities, are about equal. Only the last few months, that of the public universities outscaled that of the private, but only slightly. Even if we assume they were equal, that is 50-50%. But what do we have in terms of the demographics? Student population out there. The total Nigerian student population in our universities, 94% are in the public universities. It's only 6% are in the private. That is an index released by NUC some months ago. What that says is that majority, overwhelmingly, are in the public universities. And the responsibility of governments over time, in history, and in contemporary context, is to make available support for the highest number of persons in need. And definitely we know that the children of the less privileged are found more in the public universities. Most of those in private universities are likely to be children from the higher social class. And that is why, so addressing that aspect of the law as it affects it. But let me go to the other aspect as regards or requirements for securing our intervention funds. Yes, we have what we call guidelines. Whether it were you want to build a lecture theater, a library, a laboratory, classroom, or whatever, there are guidelines which our various departments in TETFUND implement. And those guidelines are very clear. We are very conscious of protecting public funds. And I must say this, yes, there have been infractions here and there, but overall, we have defended our guidelines, which are very strict. And it is the strictness of those guidelines that have helped us not to have failed projects and also not to have infraction by way of either corrupt practices or so on. And if there are any, you will notice that a number of heads of institutions or other officials have had to be dragged to EFCC and ICPC. If it involves TETFUND staff, so be it, or indeed any other person, including contractors. So those guidelines are there. It has helped TETFUND. Today I want to say TETFUND is one of the agencies, intervention agencies in this country where it is said that the banks are happier to give APG to contractors once they have papers emanating from the funding of TETFUND. I think that is a very big positive for us. So let me say so that the other requirements have to do with the other different lines of intervention. For instance, academic staff training and development. Let me say this, that we've had a lot of challenges. Only recently I had to go out to different parts of the world when we had complaints about some stranded. There are some that complained, but at the end we discovered they actually created problems for themselves. You cannot take our money to go and study in institution X. Then you move to institution Y without informing your institution back in Nigeria or communicating with TETFUND and getting approval for it. We have a litany of those types of infractions. We can go on with others. The same thing, research. Only recently, we issued out a statement after over 3 years when the last batch for National Research Fund were approved. The funds were not disbursed until a few weeks ago. I directed release of the letters to 39 beneficiaries and with a value of 1 billion naira. The original money kept for the NRF was 3 billion, and that is dating back to nearly 10 years back. That money was exhausted. And so when successful grants were harvested by the NRF committee, they discovered that the money was not there to cover it. So they had to fund only 39 research grants. But mercifully, on my return, and because we've listened to Nigerians, we've listened to the industry, we've listened to beneficiaries, that we should gradually be shifting to the content component. That is manuscript development, production of textbooks, journal support for both professional and institution-based journals. We have now, for instance, in respect of the NRF, for the first time, the board approved 5 billion naira new grant available to be accessed. And the next 1 to 2 months, we'll be putting up calls for proposals to by our researchers in the various universities and colleges of education. So we have strict guidelines. We know that some of our beneficiaries, including the researchers, have complained about the slow processes. The board also, when I made a request, approved recently that we review some of our guidelines. We are going to do that in the next weeks. We are conscious, but I will take advantage at this point to say this. We have a number of issues that is a rare opportunity for me to talk about, and that is what has been very disturbing as far as my office is concerned. In respect of various states, we've discovered a number of states are establishing new universities, polytechnics and colleges of education. But very sadly, they almost literally fall back, looking up to TETFUND to fund them. In a number of state universities, salaries are in arrears of nearly 6 months or even more. That is unacceptable. It is very important that when state government are establishing institutions, they should be able to guarantee salaries. And then if they have 2-3 institutions.
As Bogoro, I'm going to stop you. We are going to stop you there, Professor. And of course, thank you for sharing your time with us. Sorry, I have to stop you, Professor Suleiman Elias Bogoro. It's been wonderful talking to you this evening on Weekend Fun. I have done a lot of expatiations on some of the issues you raised. Thank you indeed. Professor Suleiman Elias Bogoro, Executive Secretary, TETFUND. Thank you for coming to Weekend File. We'll be right back. Let's take a short break now.
One football confederation, 24 teams, 6 stadiums, 4 cities, 504 African stars, 1 trophy. The Africa Cup of Nations Egypt 2019 comes alive from June 21 with the showpiece final on July 19, 2019. Watch the 52 matches of the tournament live on Africa's biggest and largest television network, NTA, in partnership with Hot Sports. Be part of the biggest soccer fiesta in the African continent as the Super Eagles go on a bold mission to clinch the prestigious title for the 4th time, to the excitement of millions of fans across the length and breadth of Nigeria. For inquiries, please contact Abubakar on 0803-331-0175 and Felix on 0803-308-2375. NTA, you can't beat the rich.
All right, now, we told you earlier that the wife of the president, Aisha Muhammadu Buhari, has been meeting with those in vulnerable situations in Katsina State. Let's get that report now from correspondent Ali Kabir.
The recent armed banditry, which affected 8 local government areas of Katsina State, has displaced over 25,000 residents of the areas. For instance, in Basari local government area alone, 28 communities are affected, displacing over 18,000 people. The worst affected communities include Tulawa, Kasai, Yasori, Ergamji, Bia, Garin Leiman, Dumbarawa, and Shekewa. While commiserating the government and the people of Katsina State, particularly the affected communities, the wife of the president has donated about 2,500 bags of 25 kilograms of rice, 12,000 packs of assorted food items, wrappers, and other essential commodities. She described the incident as unfortunate and therefore called on the relevant authorities to come to their aid to enable them to return to their various communities.
From what we have seen here is beyond the strength of a state alone to control what is happening here or to take care of the IDPs. Though they say they have already gone back to their houses, like half of them. So we thank the security agencies for working very hard.
Mrs. Buhari had earlier made a similar distribution in Katsina town to those affected in Katsina local government area with the aim of cushioning the effect of their hardship. Corresponding, the immediate past Commissioner of Health of the state, Maria Bala Usman, applauded the gesture of Mrs. Buhari. She called for the deployment of more security personnel in the state to avoid future occurrence of the unfortunate incident. The beneficiaries expressed their happiness with the gesture. The exercise is expected to be replicated to the remaining affected local government areas of the state. In Katsina, Aliu Kabir, NTA.
And that's how we concluded tonight's edition of Weekend Five. Before we leave you, I'd like to inform you that we have new champions, new European champions. We just watched the match between Liverpool and Tottenham being the finals of this year's UEFA Championship. And of course, Liverpool supporters will be happy for this. And so we thank you for being part of our show tonight. Do this again next Saturday. From me and, of course, the production team, is good night.